Good day, everyone. Today we're diving into the world of corporate finance, focusing on the key players, debt and equity investors. We'll explore how these stakeholders impact a company's operations and how they assess risk and return. Plus, we'll take a look at how environmental, social, and governance, or ESG factors, come into play. This will be a detailed walkthrough, so buckle up, take notes, and let's make sure you grasp all the nuances. All right, let's start with the basics. Debt and equity investors are crucial stakeholders in any corporation. We're going to compare the risk and return characteristics of these two types of investments and explore the potential conflicts of interest among different stakeholders. Nowadays, environmental, social, and governance (ESG) factors have become vital in balancing these interests. Analysts are increasingly using ESG to assess future performance and risks. First off, let's break down the basics. Debt versus equity. Think of debt as borrowing money with the promise to pay it back with interest, kind of like a loan for your car or home. Equity, on the other hand, is like buying a piece of the company. Think of it as owning stock in your favorite tech firm. So, what's the difference between these two? Well, debt holders lend capital for a set period. They don't get to make company decisions, but they sure can make demands if the company doesn't pay up. They might require the company to maintain certain financial health metrics or even have claims on specific assets. Now, equity investors are a bit different. They provide long-term capital, get a share of the company's profits after all expenses and debt payments, and have voting rights on major company decisions. It's like being part of a club with benefits. Here's the kicker. Debt is generally less risky for the company than equity. Why? Because interest payments to debt holders are tax deductible, but dividends to shareholders aren't. That's a nice little perk for the company's bottom line. All right, let's talk risk and return. Companies often prefer debt over equity if they have stable, predictable cash flows. Why? Debt financing is cheaper. But there's a catch. Debt comes with the responsibility of interest and principal payments, and lenders can impose some pretty strict rules. Using more debt, financial leverage, can make a company's return on equity look better, but it also ramps up the risk. If things go south, the company could face insolvency or even liquidation. For you, the investor, here's what you need to know. Stocks are riskier than bonds. Why? Because shareholders are the last in line to get paid. But if the company is doing well, the returns can be much higher. Equity holders hate dilution. Issuing more shares reduces the value of their existing shares. So they prefer debt financing over issuing more equity. The goal is for the firm's value to be higher than its debt, which benefits both shareholders and debt holders, albeit for different reasons. Shareholders want to maximize their payoff, while debt holders just want their money back on time. The sweet spot, the optimal mix of debt and equity, depends on how much risk the company can handle and its growth prospects. It's all about balancing the scales. Now, let's tackle the juicy part, conflicts of interest. Shareholders and debt holders often have different priorities, which can lead to some tension. Shareholders are the thrill seekers. They want the company to take on risky, high-return projects to boost profits. They love leveraging debt to amplify their returns. It's like playing with fire, but they believe the potential rewards are worth it. Bondholders, though, are the cautious types. They want their interest and principal payments on time, thank you very much. They prefer the company to take on safe, predictable projects that generate steady cash flows. They don't have voting rights, so they rely on contracts to protect their interests. These contracts can include covenants that restrict the company from taking actions that could jeopardize their repayments. Now, we're going to talk about the various key stakeholders in a corporation. Corporations don't exist in a vacuum. They operate in a complex environment with many different players who have a vested interest in the company's success. From investors to the community and environment, each stakeholder group plays a crucial role. Let's break it down. So who are these key stakeholders? Let's list them out. Investors, board of directors, managers, employees, customers, suppliers, governments, community, and environment. Each of these groups influences the companies to maximize shareholder returns while meeting other commitments. Let's dive deeper into each one. First up, investors. They're the lifeblood of any corporation, providing capital through debt and equity. But they're not a monolithic group. Let's break them down. Shareholders are the ones who own a piece of the company. They have the unique right to vote on significant decisions like who sits on the board of directors, mergers, and major asset sales. They're all about seeing the company grow and their shares increase in value. Private debt holders, like banks, typically hold onto their debt investments until they mature. They often have direct access to the company's management and can get non-public information, giving them significant power, especially in small or mid-sized businesses. Their risk appetite and behavior can vary widely, depending on their relationship with the company. Public debt holders make investment decisions based on publicly available information like financial statements. They usually have little influence on the company's operations. However, if the company hits a financial crisis and needs to restructure its debt, bondholders can sometimes wield significant power. Next, we have the board of directors. These folks are like the overseers of the company's management and performance. They appoint and supervise the CEO and represent the interests of shareholders. Their key responsibilities include overseeing the company's management, ensuring the company's strategic direction aligns with shareholder interests, and maintaining overall corporate governance. Composition. Boards typically consist of both internal and independent directors. Independent directors are crucial as they ensure the representation of minority shareholders and maintain objectivity. Major stock exchanges require compliance with corporate governance standards, including having a majority of independent directors and a diverse mix of backgrounds and skills. There are variations in board structures. For example, in the USA and UK, we often see a single-tier board. Meanwhile, continental Europe commonly uses a two-tier system, which includes a supervisory board of independent stakeholders with significant powers. Election terms for board members can vary, but many companies use staggered elections. This prevents sudden changes in control and ensures continuity in the company's strategic direction. Let's talk about managers next. Senior executives led by the CEO are the ones who develop and execute the company's strategy. They manage daily operations and report directly to the board of directors. Managers are compensated in various ways: base salary, annual bonuses, often in cash and stock, long-term stock-based incentives, and other benefits. This compensation structure aligns their interests with those of shareholders and discourages frequent leadership changes. Now, employees are the backbone of any company. They provide the labor and expertise needed for the company to operate efficiently. Employees typically want competitive wages and benefits, opportunities for professional growth, job stability, and a safe working environment. Sometimes they may form or join unions to negotiate these terms collectively. Some employees also participate in equity through stock plans, giving them a direct stake in the company's success. Customers are the ones driving demand for a company's products and services. Their expectations are high. They want quality products at fair prices, compliance with safety standards, and excellent after-sale support. Large corporate customers can have significant influence over a company, while retail customer loyalty and satisfaction are crucial for revenue and profit growth. Customers are also increasingly concerned about the environmental and social impact of products, adding another layer of expectation for companies to meet. Suppliers provide the essential materials, goods, and outsourced services a company needs to function. They primarily want to be paid on time. A company's financial distress can impact suppliers, making them wary of offering further credit. However, suppliers value long-term relationships, especially when it involves specialized products or mutual investments in customized services. Governments are major stakeholders too. They regulate corporate activities, enforce laws, collect taxes, and supply public services. Governments aim to ensure companies comply with laws to uphold societal well-being and contribute to the economy through production, employment, and taxes. Last but not least, the community and environment are significant stakeholders. Corporate operations can have far-reaching impacts on local communities and the environment. Companies need to be mindful of their environmental footprint and their social responsibilities. This includes everything from reducing pollution to supporting local initiatives. Engaging positively with the community and taking care of the environment is not just good ethics, it's good business. Now, let's discuss the difference between shareholders and stakeholders. Shareholder theory holds that the board of directors and management should serve the interests of shareholders to the greatest extent possible. It's all about maximizing shareholder returns. Stakeholder theory, on the other hand, proposes that the interests of all stakeholders, creditors, employees, customers, and even considering ESG factors, should be taken into account in corporate decision-making. It's a more holistic and ethical approach to corporate governance. Implementing stakeholder theory comes with its own set of challenges. Balancing diverse objectives, measuring non-shareholder interests, competing globally with varying ESG standards, and higher compliance costs are all hurdles. Despite these challenges, it's seen as a more sustainable and ethical approach to running a company. ESG factors are now crucial in corporate strategies and operations. Investors are increasingly emphasizing ESG alongside traditional financial metrics. Let's break down the key components of ESG: environmental, social, and governance factors. Environmental factors. These are particularly relevant for resource-intensive industries. Issues like climate change, pollution, and resource use are material concerns. For instance, climate risks include physical risks like asset damage from severe weather and transition risks associated with moving to a low-carbon economy, such as regulatory changes. Social factors relate to a company's dealings with employees, customers, and communities. Key aspects include fair compensation, health and safety, diversity, and community engagement. Addressing social risks can enhance productivity, reduce turnover, and protect a company's reputation. Governance factors include ownership structures, board expertise, management compensation, shareholder rights, and risk management. Insights from governance factors provide information on management quality and potential hazards within a company. Both debt and equity investors are impacted differently by ESG factors. Equity investors face more immediate impacts from ESG events, whereas debt investors are less affected unless ESG issues compromise debt repayment. Analysts evaluate a company's financial future by assessing ESG impacts and using scenario analysis to anticipate outcomes for debt and equity holders. To solidify your understanding, I recommend diving into FinQuiz practice questions and examples from the CFA Institute's curriculum. These will help you apply the concepts we've discussed and ensure you're ready for the exam. That's a wrap for today's lecture. Remember, understanding these concepts is key not only for the CFA exam, but also for your future career in finance. Keep practicing, stay curious, and don't hesitate to ask questions if you need clarification. See you in the next session.